All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got some brand new patch notes. First, tuning since the season has started, all right? And we're going to be going over those changes. These are actually specifically PvP changes, interestingly enough. So I think one thing, before I read these patch notes, one thing that I just want to mention that I think is true. I don't know this is true, but I think this is true. I think because Race to World First is going on, they're not making general changes. Because they don't want to like completely screw up what compositions, what DPS, what healers, what tanks are viable. I think Blizzard normally doesn't do a bunch of balance changes until after the Race to World First, which you may agree with, you may not agree with, but I think that is a reality. So what I think sometimes happens is there's a class that needs buffs in both PvE and PvP, okay? And I don't know what that class is, but I'm just giving you an example. So when a class needs buffs in both during the beginning of the season, a lot of the time I feel like they don't want to double dip. So they don't want to buff it a bunch in PvP because they know it's going to get buffed after the Race to World First, you know? Or simultaneously, they don't want to like giga nerf something because they're probably going to get nerfs after the Race to World First. I think that sometimes happens. Like, I don't have anything specific in mind when I mention that, but I do think it's just important to point out that I think we're not getting the most changes ever because the Race to World First is going on. Okay, that's my piece. That's all I'm going to say. Now let's get into these changes. So I have a little bit of a list here so we can just categorize some of the changes for everything that's mentioned. So we got big buffs, minor buffs, nothing changes, slight nerfs, and big nerfs. First up, let's see what they say. The following PvP class adjustments will arrive with scheduled weekly maintenance. We will continue to monitor and tune for PvP and PvE as necessary in the weeks to come. Will the Survive and Gladiators Medallion now share a 60-second cooldown for healer specializations? What is Will to Survive? Is that the human trinket? Is that a buff to humans? I didn't even read that. I didn't even see that one. So now if you play human, you're going to have a 60-second trinket? That actually seems really good. Am I crazy? 60 and 90-second trinket? Maybe that ends up being good. I don't know. A 1-minute trinket versus rogue. Oh, yeah. Because, yeah. Okay. Here we go. Resto Druid. This is what Resto Druid's got. So, all healing increased by 5% in PvP combat. So, they got slapped with a 5% band-aid. Ancient of Lore, the PvP talent, damage reduction was increased to 30%. Now, this one confuses me a little bit. This one as well. Ancient of Lore, Mass Bloom cooldown reduced to 7 seconds, was 8 seconds. Can someone remind me how long Ancient of Lore lasts? I thought it was only like 12 seconds. Am I crazy about that? How long does Ancient of Lore last? It's 12 seconds. Can anyone explain to me why this... I don't understand. It doesn't matter, like... It would have to go down to 6 seconds for it to matter, right? So you could actually get 2 off? Or am I insane? Oh, I guess you use it right away. You use it right away, but I don't think you can get 3 off. There's no way to get 3 off. I don't think it changes anything. I don't get it. I also don't think anyone ever died through Ancient of Lore that I've ever seen. But you can never get 3 off, but I feel like this change doesn't change anything about how many times you can get it off, unless I'm wrong. Anyways, all healing by 5%. I would say these are minor buffs. I mean, healing, yeah. I think druids have some issues. I don't know if just a 5% bandage fixes those issues. But I am happy that they're getting buffed. So that's good. We'll see what ends up happening. For me, going into these patch notes, what I wanted to see the most was just buffs for all the healers. I think this is a massive buff, actually. Preservation, Dream Breath healing increased by 20% in PvP combat. This might be the big... I still don't think Prez is that bad. I was kind of like, going into this season, I said that Prez was going to be S tier. I think it is slightly worse than Disc at the moment, but I still think Prez is really good. I'd still put it like an A tier, and this is actually a significant buff. Dream Breath healing increased by 20%. That's big, so I'm going to put them in minor buffs again. Well, I said it's big, but it's not like big, you know what I mean? This isn't going to like completely fucking change the game, but it is a good buff. Marksmanship Hunter. I've seen some crazy one-shot from Marksmanship Hunters. Tensile Bowstring reduces the cast time of aim shot by 25% in PvP combat. So the aim shots were a little too quick. Unnerving Vision increases your critical strike chance by 5% and critical strike damage by 10%. Was 20. So they nerfed basically the crit modifier, and you can't sling out aim shots as fast. I kind of feel like marksmanship hunters are still going to be good. I don't think this like killed them or anything, but they get some slight nerfs. Okay. Now survival, I've seen a lot of survival hunters not happy about these changes. The one-shot potential with flanking strike was too devastating, so reducing its damage and distributing that damage to the rest of the kit. Now, one thing I will say about these changes, I feel like these are not the right changes. If I could be so bold as to say so. I think flanking strike really doesn't do that much damage until you involve all the crazy modifiers. So I feel like it might have been better to just nerf some of those modifiers. This is a fat nerf on flanking strike. So yeah, I don't really know. But they're nerfing flanking strike by 30%. Spearhead increases critical strike chance by 15% in PvP combat. Was 30. So they nerf Spearhead, and Deadly Duo increases your critical strike damage by 15% in PvP combat. Was 30. And I think the root of all evil for PvP one-shots, is crit modifiers. Yeah. So I think the crit modifiers, it's like one of those things where they could probably know that this is going to happen before it does. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's a giant crit modifier. That's probably going to cause a one-shot. You know what I mean? It's like time after time after time, we see these things happen. To compensate flanking strike and some of the crit modifiers, they give them all damage increased by 4%. I really don't know what that means. I'm going to say nothing changes because, yeah, I don't know. I saw Big Mix popping off about this. I don't really know. I'd have to talk to someone who plays survival. I don't think this is going to be the biggest thing ever because I kind of thought that this was like a cheese build, this flanking strike one-shot, but we'll have to wait and see. You said I'm quieter than normal? Am I? I don't know how, but all right. Fire Mage, Frostfire. Yeah, what happened here? Fire. Frostfire, severe temperatures is now 50% effective in PvP combat. Frostfire Empowerment now increases damage done by 15% in PvP combat. Was 36%, so some decent Fire Mage nerfs there, targeting kind of their one-shot. So these slight nerfs for Fire, not the end of the world. I think it'll probably still be decent, but yeah, it is interesting that Fire Mage got nerfed over Frost and Arcane. I do feel like Fire and Frost are similar power. Arcane to me seems like the craziest spec, but what do I know? This was kind of a weird one also. Monk, Mistweaver, Condo of the Celestials damage got decreased. So Mistweaver Monks actually got a nerf. At the same time, Windwalker Monks did. So I think this is just, it makes it easier for them to nerf both at the same time. But nerfing Mistweaver Monks and also getting no buffs is really surprising. I feel like Mistweaver Monks are one of the not so good healers right now. The fact that they actually got no changes is a bit of a head scratcher to me, if I'm going to be honest. Not only did they get no changes, they actually got some nerfs. I don't think it's going to end up mattering because most people don't play Conduit of the Celestials, so I say nothing changes. For Windwalker Monks, Conduit of the Celestials was a good part of their burst. I kind of want to say nothing. It's like on the edge of nothing changes to slight nerfs. So I would say I'll put them in the slight nerfs, but it's really not that big. Ret Paladins, here we go, baby. Blade of Justice damage increased by 25%. I think Rets are happy about that. Final Verdict damage increased by 10%. Judgment damage increased by 20%. And Expurgation damage increased by 40%. Now, I think this button is like, it does nothing. Pretty sure it does very little DPS. So this doesn't, it sounds like a big number, but it's like 40% of nothing is still nothing. These are nice though. So I think Ret Paladin's definitely going to be happy. I think out of all the classes, they probably got buffed the most. So we'll see. They're pretty doggy. So we'll see what ends up happening. Now we have Disc Priest. Disc Priest just got a rework. They were looking real good. real good. But yeah, maybe a little bit too good. You know what I mean? Let me do this. All right, here we go. Power Shield Absorption reduced by 10%. Power Radiance Healing reduced by 10%. Archangel now increases the healing of Evangelism by 15%. Penance damage and healing reduced by 10%. Those are pretty significant nerfs. Premonition of Solace Absorption reduced by 25% in PvP combat. We're increasing the power of Void Blast while keeping its atonement healing the same. Oracle has been a widely popular pick for its versatility, and our goal is to change it to give Void Reaver greater opportunities to shine when they're able to get consecutive Void Blast casts off. Inner Quiet's S is now 25% more effective in PvP combat. Void Blast damage increased by 30% in PvP combat. Void Infusion is now 60% effective in PvP combat. Okay, so Void Reaver got buffed. Discipline Priest overall got nerfed. And Oracle got some specific nerfs. So what would you guys say? I'd say those are big nerfs. I still think Disc is going to be good, though. Yeah, I still think Disc will be good. I don't think this is going to kill the spec. They're quite strong right now. We'll see what ends up happening, though. All right. Next up, we have Holy Divine Hymn healing increased by 80% in PvP combat. I don't know if that's good or not. It sounds okay. I guess when you go into your angel form, you're going to have more healing. Holy Fire damage increased by 30%. Smite damage increased by 80%. So, I don't know. Seems like small. They got some damage buffs, I guess, which is kind of nice. I guess if you're a Holy Priest that can play aggressive, you got some minor buffs. And also when you Angel Hymn, that's going to be a bit stronger. So congratulations to Holy Priest. They got some minor buffs. Subtlety Rogue, this is massive changes as well. I don't really know what's going on here. Okay. We love tier list. This is not a tier list. Okay? Let's make no mistake. Once again, this is not a tier list. This is just a buff and nerf categorizer for the patch notes. All right? All right, so they're making some big changes to sub. We're making some significant changes. Basically, they have too many modifiers that create high burst, and their sustain is garbage. So I think this is a step in the right direction. Where sub falls after this, I'm not exactly sure. Finality now increases finisher damage by 15% in PvP combat. It was 1530. Shadow Blades now duplicates finishers at 10% effectiveness, was 15. Darkest Night now increases the damage of Eviscerate by 10%, was 19. Symbolic Victory now increases Eviscerate or Black Powder damage by 10%, was 18. Dance Macabre now increases damage by 2% per stack, was 4%. So all these are big nerfs to like the massive Eviscerates and Secret Text and stuff like that. And to compensate them for their finishers getting nerfed, Backstab got increased by 20%. Gloom Blade got increased by 20%. Shadow Strike got increased by 20%. Rupture got increased by 25%. And Eviscerate damage got increased by 25%. So this is actually important. It kind of offsets the one-shots. And they actually buffed Secret Tech too. So they basically buffed all of their abilities while nerfing some of the one-shot modifiers. Backstab and Gloomblade do no damage. Yes, that is true. But Shadow Strike and Rupture do damage. Rupture does a decent amount of damage, and Shadow Strike does a decent amount of damage. So, and they're also buffing Abyss and Secret Tech. So I don't know. I want to say it's minor buffs. I'm not exactly sure though. It's either nothing changes or minor buffs. I don't really think it's a. You think it's an overall nerf? I'm not sold on that. I'll put nothing changes for now, but I'm not. I want to say it's a minor buff, but maybe I'm wrong. Is sub just going to be asset number 2 if they're pumping sustained DPS? Maybe. You still have a lot of control through Shadow Dance and stuff like that. Now, let's go to Elemental. Developer notes. We're shifting some Elemental damage out of Overlords and into core abilities to increase sustained damage and reduce Elemental reliance on Overlord for kills. I might be crazy here. I actually think Elemental were not bad. I don't think Elemental was bad this week. I might be fucking crazy. I didn't think Ellie was that bad. But we'll see. Elemental Overlords now... Okay. Actually, don't even... I'm going to put... Yeah, okay. Elemental Overlords now deal 60% reduced damage in PvP combat. Mastery Elemental Overlord increases physical and elemental damage is now 30% more effective in PvP combat. Lava Burst damage increased by 20%. Lightning Bolt damage increased by 30%. Chain Lightning damage increased by 30%. Ice Fury damage increased by 20%. Frost Shock damage increased by 20%. Stormbringer Tempest damage increased by 20%. Like, these are definitely some solid buffs. I think those are big buffs. I'm putting them there. Trying to shift Ellie into a hard casting spec. I mean, is it? You don't really hard cast Frost Shock or Ice Fury. or Lava Burst. I mean, I guess you do a little bit, but I mean, I feel like a caster having to cast some spells isn't too bad. I could be insane, but part of me feels like the old rotation of just hopping around spamming instants that a little robot could pull off was a bit weird. So I guess I'll put this at minor buffs, but it could be big. The thing is, like, Ellie Shamans have so many schools of magic where it doesn't feel too bad. Warriors, champions might critical strike damage increase to 15%, and PvP combat was 25. So minor nerfs there for both arms and Fury, nothing crazy. So when you look at this, there was no mention of Resto Shaman, Enhancement Shaman, Arcane Mage, Frost Mage, a Demo Warlock, Affliction Warlock, Destro, Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest, I think, is flying under the radar. Devastation, Unholy, Frost, Boomy, Feral. Feral's also flying under the radar. Same with Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage, like, I'm really surprised Arcane Mage didn't get any changes, but like I said, we'll have to wait and see. Nothing about Demon Hunters, nothing about Beast Mastery Hunters. Beast Mastery Hunters are quite powerful and potent, and Asa. So we'll see what ends up happening, but these are the changes for now. I think these are very mild changes. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I think a big part of the reason why we're seeing mild changes is the race to world first, and they're probably going to end up doing a bunch of PvE changes that affect PvP anyways. But yeah, what do you guys think? Are you happy with these? Are you happy?